If you're watching this video, you're probably considering a cruise, which is fantastic. I love cruises. I've been cruising since I was a child, but there are a few things that aren't so great about cruising. What we're going to cover in this video are the things that make cruising fantastic and the things that are less than ideal. I think when you're making a decision like this, it's important to know as much as you can. Cruises are expensive and you're going to have to spend your time on the cruise too, which is very, very valuable. Without further ado, let's get straight into it, and we'll start by looking at one pro, which is that you can unpack once and you can see the entire world. If you were to go on a trip by land and you had to go in a car or by train, you have to keep packing and unpacking, and the traveling can be quite stressful. On a cruise, the traveling is the fun. For me, I'd go on a cruise even if it went nowhere because I love the process of cruising. Imagine opening your curtains and you're in Spain, and then you open them and you're in France, and then you open them and then, you know, it goes on, but you do not have to keep unpacking. It is so easy to cruise, and it opens up a whole world to you that you might not have seen if you weren't on a cruise. The cruise really looks after you and it makes it so much easier. A big con, and one that I think people worry about a lot, is seasickness. Don't believe the people that say to you, you won't get seasick on a cruise, because I get seasick on cruises, but I still love it. There's loads of ways that you can prevent getting seasick and that you can treat it once you're on board. For me personally, it is more than worth it when I cruise, and I don't get seasick all of the time. On land, I'm a very travel sick person. I get sick in cars, I get sick in coaches, I get sick pretty much everywhere. I would take travel sickness pills if I'm going in a car for more than about 2 hours, but most of the time on cruises I am fine. If we do get stuck in a storm or particularly bad weather, I can get seasick, but I do know how to deal with it now. I'll put a link in the description to a post that takes you through all of my seasickness tips. If you are worried about getting seasick, it's definitely better to read it and prepare rather than assume that you're not going to get seasick, because you might. Really, don't listen to those people who say that you'll never get seasick on a cruise. They just don't get seasick. Value for money is another thing that I love about cruises. Some cruises can be expensive, but a lot of them are very, very reasonably priced. For me personally, I don't spend more than about £100 per night on a cruise. And when you consider that that £100 includes your transport, it includes your accommodation, your hotel, it includes your food, and it includes your entertainment. If you were to stay on land and try and travel by train, then stay in a hotel, then go to the theatre, go out for dinner, breakfast, lunch and snacks in between, that is going to cost you so much more than £100. There really are bargains to be had with cruising. Generally speaking, I think between £100 and £150 per night is a completely reasonable price to pay for a cruise. Some people of course spend a lot more, and you can spend a lot less. I've actually cruised for £38 per night on Costa, so there definitely are bargains to be had. Because cruises are out there in the wider world, cruising around, moving, they are affected a lot by weather. If there's bad weather, if there's a storm, your port stops may be cancelled, and this happens a lot. I think probably about a quarter of the cruises I've been on have had some change in itinerary due to weather. Sometimes the itinerary can change ahead of time if there is political unrest. I've had a few changed because of that. We were supposed to cruise into Turkey a few years ago and they stopped all cruises to Turkey, so we went to Greece instead. That can happen, and it can also happen just a few hours before if the weather is bad and the ship decides that it cannot get into port. This is more likely to happen if you are tendering. A tender is a little boat that takes you to land, and of course it's harder for the little boats to go in bad weather. So if you're really worried about having your ports changed, it might be worth taking a cruise where you don't have to tender. You don't get any kind of compensation for cancelled cruise ports because it's not normally the cruise line's fault. Some travel insurance will give you a set fee for each cancelled port, but definitely check that before you cruise. On a cruise, you get to visit places that you might never have considered visiting by yourself. You might be too nervous about it, you might not know how to travel there, but when you're on a cruise, you're kind of looked after because the cruise ship takes you there, it sets you free, and then it takes you somewhere else. I've actually visited places like Honduras on a cruise. I would never have just thought, oh, okay, I'll just go to Honduras. No way. Cruising shows you places that you didn't even know you wanted to visit yet. You do get a little taste of each place, but you can decide if you want to come back to it later. I recently took an Asia cruise, which was fantastic. We cruised from Singapore to Tokyo, and we had one day in the middle in Vietnam. If I was going on holiday to Japan, there's no way I would think to myself, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Vietnam for a day. No way, but I did get to see it and it was fantastic. I'm really glad that I did. The next thing that can be kind of annoying is that you only get a limited time in each place. Most of the time you'll have a full day in port. You might get in about 9 or 10 a.m. and you might leave about 6 p.m. in the afternoon, which is fine. You have a full day to explore. On some cruises you do have less time than that. I recently took a cruise with Celestial Cruises and we did 2 ports a day, so sometimes we would only have about 4 hours in each port, but we did have 2 ports a day, and there's no way you'd be able to see those places on land. I kind of view it more as a taster. You can see if you'd like to go back to that place or if you would never like to go back to that place. Either is fine, but at least then you know. Overnight stops are becoming increasingly popular, and in a lot of places your cruise ship will stop overnight. I recently took a cruise where we stopped overnight in Amsterdam. They do it in St. Petersburg quite a lot too. So if there's somewhere you really would like to see and you'd like to experience the nightlife, you can look for a cruise where the ship stays overnight. There is nothing more peaceful, in my opinion, than sitting on the balcony, maybe watching the sunset, having a drink and just listening to the ocean. It really is humbling when you're out there and you see nothing for miles around. There's nothing quite like it. I think cruising is more relaxing than any other way of holidaying because you can also be completely disconnected. If you don't want to use the internet, you don't want to pay for it, you are out there and you have a full day by yourself and you can just take a moment to sit still. Our lives are really busy. I know mine is. I very rarely take any time just to sit down and read a book. So for me, cruising is the most relaxing way to travel and I love it. One con is that cruise ships can get busy. Some of the biggest ships hold 4,000-5,000 people and it can get busy, especially in kind of school holidays if a lot of kids are on there. It's just about finding the right cruise line for you. Some are a lot more relaxed and some are a lot busier. It does generally get cheaper though the more people are on there, so I do tend to cruise on the bigger cruise ships. I know a lot of people who really do find the bigger ships overwhelming, and if that is for you, don't cruise on those big ships. There are plenty of small and mid-sized cruise ships that are just as exciting. If you love eating, you're gonna love cruising because it is all about the food. Imagine if at home you went out for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner and then you decided to have snacks in between, evening snacks, afternoon tea. It would cost you so much money, but one of my favourite things about cruising is you can eat, and you can eat as often and as much as you like. On loads of cruise lines you'll find 24-hour food, you'll find loads of food that's included in the cruise fare, multiple restaurants, buffet, poolside grill, loads of things. And there'll also be some specialty restaurants where if you really want to get a nice lobster or a nice steak, you can pay extra and go to those too. So if you are a big foodie and there's something you'd really like to try, cruising is great for that. It isn't just the quantity of food that's impressive, it is the quality. Of course the quality of the food does vary by cruise line, but I don't think I've really ever had a bad meal on a cruise. And even if you did, if something came and you really didn't like it, you can order as much as you like for free. So good. You don't have to actually think about what you want to eat. It comes to you, you see the menu, you think, oh, that looks nice. You don't have to cook it and you do not have to do the dishes or wash up afterwards. It's gone. As soon as you eat it, it's gone and you just walk out the restaurant. You don't have to pay, you've already paid. Brilliant. When you get to port, the shore excursions can be really expensive. The cruise line, of course, wants to sell you shore excursions because that's how they make a lot of their money. You can also book your shore excursions independently by just getting there and seeing what companies are there, or you can just wander off and do your own thing. I'm a big fan of the wander off and do your own thing plan, but in some ports it's not possible to do that. This is a con that I don't really worry about, but I know a lot of people do, and that is cruise ship weight gain. It is possible to cruise and eat a lot and not put on weight, but I think there is a saying that says that you put on £1 a day on a cruise, and I'm sure some people do. For me, it's all about good things in moderation. If you take the stairs, if you walk quite a lot, generally the food on cruise ships is pretty healthy. Even if you do eat quite a lot, there's quite a lot of vegetables and quite a lot of fresh food. Compared to me at home where I'd eat crisps and biscuits, there's not really that kind of munchy food on a cruise. You might be eating a lot, but it might actually be better for you to eat a whole proper meal for lunch rather than a packet of crisps. When I say crisps, I mean like a packet of potato chips. If you're American, we call those crisps. For me, I really love the entertainment on cruises. On some cruise lines, the productions will be as good as they are on Broadway. Most cruise lines will have a show team of singers and dancers, and they'll put on different entertainment for you every night. Some of these theatres are bigger than theatres that you'll find on land, and generally the entertainment is really, really good. I usually go to the theatre every single night, and that's not the only entertainment that there is. Around the ship, there'll be live music, there'll be trivia, there'll be game shows, there'll be loads going on. So if you want to be constantly entertained, on most cruise lines that will happen. There's some cruise lines which are more relaxed than others, but if you do want one with a crazy busy schedule, go for Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Carnival. You can't go wrong with those. The internet access on a cruise can be really pricey, and personally, if I didn't have my YouTube channel and all of my social accounts to keep going, I probably wouldn't buy any internet on a cruise. On most cruise lines you'll get different packages, so you might be able to buy the cheapest one if you're kind of just wanting to check a few emails or check in with the family. It can get quite expensive if you want to be able to stream, and the internet isn't always that reliable. The cruise ships can do a good job a lot of the time, but if they're in between some fjords and they don't have signal, you're not going to get great internet. You can buy internet by the minute, you can buy it by the whole cruise, or you can buy it by the megabyte. I would definitely recommend buying it for the whole cruise or the whole day if you can. There's nothing really more frustrating than trying to log out of this internet and just seeing your megabytes drop, or just seeing your minutes ticking by and there's nothing you can do about it. If you can book for a whole day, on P&O I booked a package which was I think £10 a day, which I thought was very reasonable for all my social accounts, and it just took out that worry, because even if the internet was being slow, I knew it was a fixed rate and I wasn't going to get charged more. Another thing is that everything is so close to your cabin. It's so convenient if you want to go and get some food, and you want to go get a drink, and you want to go to the theatre. You don't have to think about transport. If you're out drinking, you can just roll back to your room. It's so easy. I really don't think there's any other way that is so convenient to travel. Even if you stay in an all-inclusive land resort, there's normally 1 or 2 restaurants, maybe a few bars, but that's it. And if you want to go out, you have to make your own way out and see what's out there in the wide world. On a cruise, there's all of this stuff for you there all of the time. You get off in port, but you're kind of always within a safe distance of your ship. If you get off and you don't want to eat any food there, come back for lunch. It's fine. For me, one thing that I don't like is some of the other people that I have to cruise with. I know that sounds ridiculous, but some people can be so rude to the waiters and the people that work there, and it just drives me insane. Good manners cost nothing, but some people are missing basic manners, and you are probably going to be with some of them on the ship. When you get loads of people together, you are going to get a few that you don't really want to share the ship with. Cruises are fantastic for kids. Most cruise lines do have kids clubs where your kids can go free of charge, and it's free childcare, and they love it. I cruised when I was a child, so I have first-hand experience of this, and I had so much fun making friends with people from around the world. When I was little, my parents would eat in the main dining room, and me and my cousins would go off to the buffet to get pizza, and I felt so grown up, and it was so much fun. Many of the ships now are designed specifically with kids in mind, so they'll have water slides, they'll have kids aqua parks, they'll have Lego, they'll have all kinds of things inside. So cruise line design definitely is going towards the family market. More and more families are cruising, and more are loving it, and then they're growing up, and then they're making YouTube videos about cruising. Most cruise lines will provide a kids menu in the main dining room, and they'll also sometimes have a kids part of the buffet. I do know on MSC ships that they have a kids corner of the buffet, because that is the only place I could find donuts, and I have to admit I did take a donut from the kids section and head back into the adult section, but there's plenty to go around. Another downside is that if you're cruising on your own, it can be really, really expensive. Some cruise lines do have solo cabins, and they'll have a price for that cabin, and that is it. But on a lot of cruise lines, you have to pay a solo supplement. So the only way you can cruise is you book a room that holds 2 people, and you pay for 2 people, but you're only 1 person. You can't book a room for 2 as 1 person and only pay for 1 person, because the cruise line is losing out on the drinks and the casino and the spend that that other person would be spending. For that reason, it can be quite expensive to cruise solo. Cruise lines definitely are improving on this, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Cruises are insanely addictive, and once you start doing it, you're probably not going to be able to go back. So before you take your first cruise, just think, am I willing to just want to cruise all of the time and think about cruise, and subscribe to YouTube channels about cruising, please, and follow cruising all over the internet, because it will happen to you. Cruising is brilliant, and I don't think I've actually ever met anybody who's gone on a cruise and hated it. I've met people who've gone on cruises where they're completely not suited for them. Maybe they hate formal dining and they picked Cunard, or they love formal dining and they picked Carnival. Sometimes some people don't get on with certain cruise lines, but I do really think that there is a cruise line for everybody, and you're here watching this, so you should make a good decision. Thank you for watching this. I hope that you liked it. Please subscribe. I bring you new videos every single week. I do get to cruise quite a lot. I'm very, very lucky, and there's a lot of variety on this channel, so please do subscribe. That's it from me this time, but I'll see you in the next video.